My fiancé told me he is tired of hiding who he is from me and now I'm not sure I want to get married. My fiancé and I have been dating for 3 years. We've known each other for 8 years and just got engaged a year ago. We are also long distance since he is military, so only see each other for maybe 4 to 5 days a month, with the exception of summers when I move wherever he is to stay with him for a month or two. So throughout the last 3 years of the relationship, it became very evident that my fiancé, let's call him Dave, held some pretty serious prejudices. Examples: he passionately dislikes fat people and would consistently insult strangers and make disparaging jokes about fat people. He prided himself on being an imperialist. Proudly called himself a sexist and didn't talk to women unless it was for relationship purposes. Said my brother might be treated differently by police because he looks threatening. My brother and I are black, Dave is white. Anyway, I addressed all of these things whenever they came up, and we had multiple conversations in which he decided it was wrong to hold these beliefs. However, after addressing them, he would get extremely upset if I called him out on saying anything slightly prejudicial throughout the relationship, because he would say he doesn't hold those beliefs anymore. Last month, we got into a pretty big argument about why systemic racism is bad. He said it makes the US looks bad and it weakens our foreign influence, so therefore it is bad, whereas I am of mind that it is bad because black people, including myself, are human beings and deserve to be treated with an equal amount of dignity, respect, and general decentness. This argument escalated and he started going on a rant of how tired he is of stepping over eggshells around me and how he can never find the right words to make me happy, and that he is tired of hiding who he is around me. This was very shocking, and I tried to probe more on what he was hiding, and basically he revealed that all of the prejudices I thought he had gotten over, he still had, and was just trying to suppress them around me. He mentioned one of the things he's tired of hiding is that he still strongly dislikes fat people and doesn't see a problem with that. But I've suspected this has been the cause of a lot of his behavior, such as 1. Asking me how much I've eaten every day and what time I ate. Don't eat after 8 p.m. 2. Telling me to drink water all the time. 3. Insulting my friends for gaining weight. 4. Telling his own mother not to eat fatty foods. 5. Asking why some people in my family were fat. 6. Telling me he doesn't want to get me pregnant because he wants me to be skinny longer. Countless other little things here and there. But whenever I said, "Do you have a problem with fat people still?" he would get defensive and pretend I was imagining it. Again, we're long distance, so I suppose I don't get to see the person he is all of the time. But now that he's told me, I feel like I can't trust him, and he's sucking up because he knows I don't want to do this anymore because it feels like a lie. So we are seeing a friend of his for marriage counseling. I put it in parentheses BC. The guy is not qualified and talks to Dave outside of sessions all the time, and even brought his own wife to a session, and now Dave says he's ready to change and leave these prejudices behind. Really, this time I've lost trust and honestly have not felt the same about our relationship since that day. Although he's saying he'll change this time, I'm not sure if he means it or is just trying to placate me into staying in the relationship, then reverting back whenever he feels like he has me. Plus, I believe these prejudices stem from a lack of empathy and insecurity that reflect in other areas, like the way he reacted to the pandemic. Completely ignored any rules and felt like he could get me sick too because I'm young, even though I told him I do not want to get sick. I also reminded him that I'm high risk because I have asthma, to which he said, "Ugh, I forgot you're unhealthy." He's consistently put me down for my genes and even explicitly said my genes are superior to yours. Anyways, he said what I wanted to hear in order to make me feel safe enough to move down for the summer, and when I got there in late March, he didn't want to take any precautions that we had previously discussed, ex wearing a mask. I'm not a face mask kinda guy, or having hand sanitizer in the car, and actually argued with me when I insisted and was condescending, calling me mom and rolling his eyes. Update. Firstly, thank you everyone for your input. The run comment was pretty brutal but effective. I broke off the engagement 3 days ago via phone call. I haven't figured out how I will return the ring, but thinking by insured mail. The call itself wasn't horrible because I think he was in shock, but a couple of highlights from the call. I might have lied, fine. But you are a liar too, you lied about loving me. Not trying to guilt you, but you've destroyed me. I have nothing now and have no idea what I'm going to do with myself. Are you seeing someone else? You're making a huge mistake. All I wanted was to be a good husband to you. 2x. These comments were hard to hear because my worst fear is that I preemptively cut off a relationship with a man who is going through active change and who loves me dearly. But at the end of the day, I realized I don't trust that he will change genuinely, and I have no idea how to measure that progress since he has proved to hide parts of himself around me. He hasn't tried to contact me since I broke things off, and I'm grateful for that. I think it would make everything so much worse. I am grieving such an immense loss, which is hard to communicate because others see it as a win by leaving an unhealthy relationship. Again, thanks everyone for the advice. Comment. Take the time to grieve and perhaps schedule an appointment with a licensed therapist. You might need to undo some of the work you did with the relationship counselor who clearly didn't have your best interests in mind. Seconded. I hope you see this up. Grief is normal and hard, even when you know it's the right move. Please take care of yourself. Big hugs. Third. This. I have broken ties with my own dad, and while that had been toxic to me, people around me were happy I finally made the decision, etc. I still needed the time to digest it. A lot. And it's hard to show any negative emotions on something you're complimented on. For me it was my own dad I share some traits and DNA with. For you it's someone you thought you'd spend your rest of life with. So please do spare enough time to be sad. It is sad. Therapies are for times like this, I think. You need to heal. You did the right thing, but it's traumatic. I make my family too. I moved away from the caring family and now I don't really have any. Aside from my sis and my parents. Cut dad off and I even have a replacement. I found a dad, he lectured me on right and wrong, cheered me on, kept me from going hungry, gave me refuge when things got bad at home. His kids are my little siblings. I hope you find all the family you are looking for and deserve. Next story 2. I confessed to my best friend and was rejected. A week later he says he was wrong and has actually loved me all along. What do I do? I finally built up the courage to confess to my best friend that I had feelings for him for the past 2 years. He was really nice about it and let me down gently but in no uncertain terms. It was a hard pill to swallow, but I accepted this and I told him I'd need some time to just get back to the right headspace. I took a week to separate myself from him and let myself recover and rebuild my self-esteem, but I made sure to tell him there's no hard feelings, I just need the space. Fast forward to today, I ran into him and decided to talk to him and apologize for putting him in an uncomfortable position, but that I accept his feelings and I'm ready to continue our relationship as friends. Except, he tells me that he took that week to think too, and he thinks he's actually loved me for a long time but that he was too dense to recognize his own feelings until now. I feel like I should be elated, but for some reason my heart just really hurts. I feel confused and unsure of what to believe. For all the time I've known him, he's never been the type to play with someone else's feelings and has never given me any reason to think he's lying to me now about how he feels towards me, but I don't understand how someone can just go from having no romantic feelings towards someone to saying they've loved them all along in such a short time. I feel like I've been asked to tear out a piece of my heart, so it shut, and now suddenly open that same wound to put everything back the way it was. Should I just accept his feelings now? Should I be wary of this? I feel like this should be such an easy decision and yet, I just feel so confused. Update: thank you all for all of your advice and kind comments. We met in person to talk things through and I asked him what changed. He told me that the truth was that he'd never really felt romantically interested in anyone else before, so he genuinely didn't really know how to distinguish a best friend from something more. I know he's never had a relationship before, he's never expressed a romantic interest in anyone else, and never seemed to express a sexual attraction to someone else, so this seems to line up from what I know of him. I asked him then how he knew for sure that he liked me as more than a friend. He said he'd never felt this way towards anyone else, never felt nervous butterflies just wanting to see them, never felt a strange jealousy when another guy was trying to hit on them, and never felt his heart race when he accidentally brushed hands with them. I told him that I wanted to make sure he wasn't confusing any guilt he may feel for turning me down for love. He said that if he wanted to pity me he would have just said yes the first time. He apologized again for confusing and hurting me and said that if I still needed time he'd be willing to wait, take things slow, and keep talking more until I could figure my feelings out. I told him I didn't need more time to know how I felt, because I never really stopped loving him even if I had pushed those feelings down as far as I could. I told him that I wanted to take things slow, but I wanted to do so as more than just friends. We talked for a while. He even told me how he actually had come to the park planning to confess and ask me out, but when he heard me apologize to him and say that I was ready to just be friends he realized it might be better to take things slow. Of course, at the end of all this I just sort of happy/relief cried like a dork and he just pulled me close and hugged me, though he had some happy tears himself. We're planning to order some food from one of our favorite restaurants and have a picnic date at the same park next week. Comment. I had a guy best friend and we were so close we said hey let's give it a shot. It was the most awkward 2 weeks of my life so we decided to break up and continue being friends. Over the next 2 months I ended up falling in love with him and I finally confessed and he said he felt the same. He was the only man I was ever in love with. I say talk to him and give it a shot. He was probably caught off guard. Explain to him how you feel. I'm rooting for you. Hey guys. I really appreciate all of your advice. I didn't expect this to get as much attention as it did and I'm truly grateful for it. Thank you for gold too. I've already messaged him to ask if we can talk in person later today and will update on what happens. For those looking for more detail on what happened when he confessed, I'm not so sure it was that I ran into him so much as it was that he purposely put himself somewhere he knew I'd be. I like going to the park near my house to stay in shape and he was by the entrance around the same time I had finished up. We said hi to one another and I tried to be as casual as possible to go back to how things were before. I apologized immediately for putting him in an uncomfortable position and told him I'd be just fine and not to worry because I'm glad we could still stay friends. As I was telling him this he just seemed to deflate and I asked him what was on his mind and he told me that he does have feelings for me after all and that they've been there all along but he just didn't recognize them as romantic love. Honestly, I kind of freaked out there and told him to hold on because I was confused and didn't really know what to believe anymore. He told me he was sorry for confusing me and hurting me, and he understood if I needed time to think. I told him I did and sort of just left it there until, well, here we are. I just want to assure you it's completely understandable to be confused by these events. The courage it takes to confess your feelings to someone, especially a dear friend, is very daunting. You risk the friendship, and you have to prepare for rejection. Plus the guilt of putting a dear friend in a potentially uncomfortable position. I know it's a storm of emotions, but I hope it starts to make sense when you both share your thoughts. Sometimes it just takes time to process. My best friend from high school also initially turned me down, but he came back to me in about a week and asked me if we could go on a date. Now it is 5.5 years later in a very happy relationship. We have an apartment together and just adopted a kitten.